Welcome back to Nerds Amalgamated. This week we're talking about SAG-AFTRA and game companies, short anime seasons due to a lack of staff, and the use of light sails to propel probes beyond our solar system.
And going where no man has gone before.
Alright, Captain Kirk, back on your spaceship.
Space, the final frontier.
They say that, but have they really thought about, alternate dimensions and stuff?
Well, I thought the sea was the final frontier as well.
Yeah, there's a saying that we know more about the moon than we do about the deep ocean. Anyway, SAG-AFTRA, the union representing actors, voiceover artists, and media professionals, is currently having a video game strike. And although they did just the other day put in an exception that would allow people to work on game jams and student projects while they're striking against major companies, they're still no closer to making a deal, even though they've been striking since July.
Wait, didn't they also do another strike during the Game Awards as well?
I don't recall that one.
Yeah, there was as soon as the Game Awards launched last year, they say like SAG-AFTRA is on a strike.
Well, if they've been striking since July, then they would have still been striking at the Game Awards. So it's probably just a continuing situation rather than a brand new thing.
Yeah.
So SAG-AFTRA are negotiating with a bargaining group featuring representatives from Activision, Blindlight, Disney Character Voices, EA, Formosa Interactive, Insomniac Games, Llama Productions, Take-Two, and WB Games. Some of the biggest companies out there.
Yeah.
And the union wants to make it clear that the bargaining group is saying that they're close to a deal, but the union does not agree.
So help me out here. So is the bargaining group just a go-between between the game companies and the union, or is it just
Yeah, it's kind of a union for the companies.
Okay.
Instead of the union negotiating with each company individually, they come to an agreement that covers all of these companies.
Okay.
And the reason for this strike is AI, which I'm sure you're sick of hearing about. Basically, the union doesn't like the idea of companies using AI to create replicas of living people or even dead people and using that to replace people who could be making money and royalties from the work. So the bargaining group are really working to push through the use of AI compared to indies who are willing to sign the SAG-AFTRA agreements. They currently have an interim and independent agreement for indie developers, which basically the small people who don't have the resources to create these AI models anyway are really getting to make all of these things, while the big companies are not because they refuse to come to an agreement with the union. And I think what the union's asking is quite reasonable. They're basically demanding that they're protecting their members by preventing the companies in the bargaining group from replacing them with robots, which is going to be an increasingly important role that unions play in the near future, the way companies are developing robots and AI at the moment.
Interesting question would be if let's say the strike goes in favor of the unions and the SAG-AFTRA group. Are these voice actors going to jack up their salary rates to keep in line with the current market value? And will their rates damage the company's bottom line?
Well, that's the other advantage of being a union member. You usually get paid more. And the reason for that is that when you're in the union, you've got the backing of so many people helping you to make an agreement, because the company has to work with everyone. If there's no agreement, the union goes on strike, no work gets done. The company then has to come to an agreement with that. Whereas if it's just individuals, if you decide you're not getting paid enough and go on strike without having the backing of a union, then you're kind of screwed because they'll just fire you and replace you. And they try to do that with unions too. That's where the term scabs comes from. Scabs are people who go to work to replace union members who are striking. So I think being part of the union, they'll get paid more than if they were independent. But the main goal of the union is to make sure that the work continues to exist. in the future rather than be replaced with robots, at least in this current strike.
But as I was saying, like, will this affect the games company's projects in terms of budgeting and whatnot? Like, let's say for example, before the strike, your game budget was like 160 million for, and now thanks to the strikes, now you're forced to budget. Now your budget's now ballooned, and trying to get that money back it's going to be extra
Well,
hard.
then you need to come to an agreement with the strikers, because the longer the strike goes on, the less work gets done by the company because they need the union members to do the voices and motion capture and all the other things that are covered by the strike. So the sooner the bargaining group makes an agreement with the union, the sooner the strike is over and the sooner the bargaining group can finish the projects they're working on. But the longer the strike goes on, the more they're going to have to budget for keeping the project running and delays. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, and delays cost a lot of money as well.
They can.
So with the so with the where's the disconnect with bargaining group and the in terms of the union saying, yeah, the bargaining group is saying, yeah, we're doing great progress and stuff, while the union's like, no, we're not. Where's the disconnect?
Well, the statement from the union basically boils down to the bargaining group is made an agreement on their side that doesn't go far enough to protect the workers. So there are plenty of smaller developers who are willing to work with the agreement that SAG-AFTRA have made, the interim and independent agreements, but the big companies, for some reason, don't want to do that. And the big disconnect is about the AI replicas. The company is hoping they can force SAG-AFTRA into an agreement that doesn't meet all of the conditions that they were working to get into the agreement. SAG-AFTRA wants to go much further than the bargaining group does, because the bargaining group obviously wants to
They want to be
pay the
diplomatic.
least. And no, it's more like the bargaining group wants to pay the least and make the most replicas.
Oh,
It's not that they're being diplomatic about it. Like, everyone has to be diplomatic. But the bargaining group wants to make replicas of actors using AI. And then in the future, if the actor is unavailable or on strike, then the AI will basically be a scab.
yeah, that sounds like a terrible idea. Like, what the hell? And the guy that provided the voice gets screwed over in the long run.
Yeah.
But the one question that's going to be interesting is, how are the audience going to react to this, or the consumer per se?
I don't know. I'm hoping most consumers are on the side of the union, because let's be honest, the AI stuff is getting good, but even the best AI still can't do a perfect replica of a human voice.
Yeah.
So I think that for the time being, you get better quality products by having a human in the loop. If the bargaining group are able to get a replica of a human and use the replica to generate voice lines or character models or whatever they're working on, the quality will have to be lower because the AI just isn't that good.
And the sucky part about this is going to be as well, while the strike is strike is going, is the fact that the price of games might also potentially go up as well, because maintaining maintaining those AI voices is going to be very expensive.
Yeah, like even the ones that claim to be cheap, like DeepSeek, if you look into it, they still cost millions and millions of dollars to get where they are. And DeepSeek were only able to do that by basically standing on the shoulders of giants and basing their work on already existing work.
Yeah.
So realistically, the cost to make one of these AIs is currently huge. But the way technology advances, it's just going to come down. And eventually it's going to be competitive with a human actor.
Yeah, and I think from a big picture standpoint, this makes the games company look like a bunch of ogres, in a sense that, hey, we're fucking these voice actor careers We're fucking their careers up with with AI voice. Just yeah, and also while we're fucking up their careers, buy our products, consume our products.
Yeah, well, I know you worked at a supermarket as a checkout person. How did it feel when they brought in the automatic checkouts?
I wouldn't. I mean, I used to. But yeah, I was. I was pretty bummed out at first, but then at the same time, like people still want to. People still. I still people telling me like, hey, people still want the checkouts.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're
the jury's
starting
still.
to turn back against it now. A
Yeah.
lot of companies are putting people back in where they put in automatic checkouts, which is funny because Audi near me has just put in automatic checkouts. And Audi is usually the cheapest store. So, but I wouldn't think of Audi being like 10 years behind the times and then jump on the bus just as it's running off the cliff. But those, like, they have fewer checkout people because they have the robots to do the job now.
Although that could also backfire a bit. Like remember Amazon and their
Oh, yeah,
checkouts.
Amazon Just Walk Out thing.
Yeah. And how it was later revealed that most of the technology behind it are all just bunch of robots. No, a bunch of humans operating in India.
Yeah, Amazon AI stands for another India.
Oh, that was terrible.
It was. But yes, the Amazon Just Walk Out, I think it was called, was a
Yeah.
system where you'd go to the shops, pick up an item and put it in your bag, and then just walk out, and it would automatically bill your bank account the value of whatever it was that you put in your bag. And it turned out AI is nowhere near ready to do that job yet. It might never be, but right now, we're definitely not because most of the work was still being done by a bunch of poorly paid people in India.
Yep.
They outsourced their checkouts to India.
And I think that's what's coming. That's what's coming down to. It's just you're just outsourcing all of the work from the voice actors themselves to a bunch of AI people. In the end, it's just another outsourcing debacle.
Yeah, it's just outsourcing for the modern age.
Yeah, back in the day, it used to be when outsourcing was first introduced, people were kind of like, it was a sign of things to come. Like there was not much pushback. You look at AI when AI becomes the new outsourcing, there is there is a lot more pushback to it, and also a few more of the it's a sign of things to come, which is interesting.
I think there was a lot of pushback against outsourcing
The first time
in
around.
the first time around. I think you might not have seen it because you're in a different field,
Hmm.
but I do know people who I've spoken to who working in IT. Like IT was one of the big outsourcing things 10, 15 years ago, and even longer than that as well. But there a lot of companies hire other companies to do their IT rather than having internal IT specialists. And I've heard from a lot of IT people that they do not like that because the outside company is always service level agreements, and like if you have a service level agreement for a certain number of hours a week, then it takes longer to get an answer when you have an issue because you've got to wait for that outsourced person to be on site and to work with you to fix your computer. Yeah. Anyway, my point was that IT was a major outsourcing thing, and there's the whole stereotype about talking to the Indian call center. It's just that I think not knowing anyone in call centers, I don't know anyone who was displaced by outsourcing. So I think there was a lot of pushback, just not from anyone that I know. And then it
Yeah.
hit IT. There was a lot of pushback from IT people, but not from anyone else. And then outsourcing the checkouts to India or to the robots. There'll be a lot of pushback from people who work on checkouts. But it's also a very public facing thing. Everybody uses the checkouts, not everybody uses IT. So it's very obvious that people are being outsourced from the checkouts.
You reckon the jury's still out though in terms of the use of AI in especially in projects like video games and movies, or still it's not out yet?
Uh, what do you mean by jury being out?
As in, some people might say yes, AI is a necessary evil. Some people say no, no, AI is totally evil and it'll take your jobs. Like I see, like some people are using the argument that oh yes, AI can be is a good AI is a good thing. Some people are saying AI is a bad thing. Like Tyler Perry, for example, how he was saying about the use of
Oh,
AI,
yeah.
about the use of AI being useful.
Yeah, Tyler Perry cancelled his investment into like he was building his own studio
Yeah,
and cancelled a bunch of that because of AI.
yeah,
Yeah, I think a lot of the big wigs are going to push for AI because they see it as a way to cut costs. And I think you'll see a lot of people working against AI because it's going to take their jobs or because they actually have to work with the output of the AI and they don't want to deal with the problems the AI spits out.
the
Like,
hallucination.
yeah, hallucinations. There's a thing called vibe coding, which is where
What?
yeah, people who don't know how to program are using AI to create programs. And just as long as it feels good and it kind of works, it's okay. But by not being programming experts, the AI is also not a programming expert. It doesn't know. Whoops, just knocked a bunch of stuff off my desk.
Hmm.
The AI doesn't know anything about security or reliability. So there was a tweet going around a couple of weeks ago where this guy's like, I just vibe coded my first web app. And an hour later he tweeted, wow, everyone's hacking me. I'm not telling anyone about my work anymore. Because the AI doesn't have the big picture knowledge of the program. It's only good enough to do, like, it will spit out bits that you then glue together, but not knowing the big picture, it can't secure those bits. And I've dabbled in a little bit with AI, but I think I think it's not ready for prime time.
See, you're right. They're not ready for prime time. But back to the whole the SAG-AFTRA versus the games companies.
Yep.
I just thought of an idea how they could how they could actually solve this all the situation. You know how in with police investigations you give their DNA spit, for example, and they destroy it a few 24 hours later. That kind of dealio.
Are you saying that police take your DNA and do a test and then destroy it if it's not relevant?
Yeah.
I highly doubt they actually destroy it in Australia, at least. Maybe in Europe with things like the GDPR, but yeah, there was a case in the US. I think he was called the Golden State Killer.
Oh
He
yeah.
was caught because one of his relatives did a DNA test that pinged, like, the DNA companies work with the police, so that pinged the police database. This is similar um,
To the killer
to the
himself.
killer's DNA. And the police then went and, through the investigation, they stalked this guy who was a suspect because they worked out if the killer is related to Jane Doe, then, and he's one or two generations distant, however they work that out, then they looked at her family tree and stalked the guy they thought was most likely until he threw away a coffee cup, a takeaway coffee cup. They collected the coffee cup and took the DNA off that and
Bingo was his name.
yeah, matched the DNA and arrested him. So anyway, I think your point was that they use the AI to create a replica and then delete the replica after the project's finished.
Yeah.
I don't think they would do that because the replica, like, that's what they want to get the rights to own the replica forever. So I don't think the bargaining group would go for that. And if they did do that, they would be putting in a ton of effort into creating an AI to do something the actor could do, and then deleting it at the end of the project when the actor leaves. So I don't know, maybe in the future, an alternative to that would be to have the actor maintain ownership of their likeness and then license out the replicas themselves. Maybe a whole industry will spring up where there's companies making replicas of people and then renting them out to companies that want to use AI art, and the royalties go to the
estate.
originator of the likeness.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think anyone would ever delete an AI unless they absolutely had to, because it's so expensive to make them at the moment.
Yeah.
But let's move on to our next topic. Anime is getting shorter because of a lack of staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So
I
oh,
remember just a few months ago, we spoke about AI replacing anime animators because the AI was able to create the in betweens. I think that's what they call it, the tweens in animation.
the tweening tool.
Yeah, the AI was a tweening tool. So you'd create the beginning and the end of the movement, and the AI would fill in the gap.
Yeah.
So where is everyone going?
Well, according to a according to the veteran animator Kyoko Kotani, who's famous for his works in Mobile Gundam, he has highlighted a significant shortage of the professional staff, leading to shorter anime seasons. She's noted that the TV series are now expected to meet the high quality standards of theatrical films, making production increasingly challenging. This staffing shortfall has made it difficult to produce or air 2 consecutive cores, which is their version of season, with studios often managing with one core even with a year's preparation. And in response to that, studios are turning to social media platforms to recruit amateurs and beginners for tasks like creating reference materials for dubbing. However, Katani points out that the work for these less experienced individuals often required substantial revisions by animation directors and supervisors, consuming additional time and she's also
Yeah,
expressed.
that's basically my point about the vibe coding. You got to spend more time babysitting it to make sure that it doesn't get lost or make something wrong. That you could be doing the thing yourself and getting a high quality product. Same deal with hiring a noob.
Yeah.
You need to babysit the noob while they get experience.
Yeah. Citing issues like copyright concerns and impracticality in the current workflow. Yeah, and she's also cited an example where AI generated backgrounds were unusable. Although she clarified later that Toei Animation is able to produce consecutive TV anime due to the experience with longer production, which helps in passing down know-how.
Okay, so they've got a shortage of workers. I wonder how much of this is because of a change in Japanese culture, because it's well known that Japanese culture is very crunch heavy, and that like you hear about companies where you're expected to be working longer than your boss. So people come into work really early in the morning and leave after the boss has left at night and sleep under their desk for half the day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So I wonder if there's a change happening to Japanese work culture where people are just not wanting to take part in that, so they don't go into the industry.
And what's interesting is the fact that using social media to help anime studios finding new talent and managing their workload, that's a very dangerous way to look for work, because you don't know what's they don't know what's in store for them, you know. Like, let's say for example, if I was fresh out of high school I'm a very talented animator, and I get signed up to work for a Japanese company, I don't know what the industry's like in the real world.
Is your point that it's easy to exploit younger workers because they don't know what their rights are?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing a lot of translation for you today.
Oh yes. Oh yes. It's because the companies, because we all know animation company, be it from the western side or the eastern side, they are very prone to exploiting people. A lot of people.
Yeah, I remember it being a big deal a few years ago, especially with the Sausage Party animators. Terrible movie. But anyway, they were not paid enough for their work, and the studio tried to get out of their contract to finish paying them basically.
Yeah, that was a really, and another situation that happened. I think remember this one. It was, I was gonna say Ruth, but that's a dead horse. Okay, I lost my train of thought just then.
Okay, well I've got a thought.
Oh yeah.
Is this a bad thing? Because rather than pumping out seasons that are 20 or 30 episodes long, they might have to do some that are shorter, but put more polish into each one. Because you said that they're being expected to have feature film quality.
Yeah.
So, what if they put more polish into a fewer number of episodes, like the BBC series do? Not just the BBC, but most British TV
Hmm.
is 6 to 12 episodes, whereas American shows tend to be much longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, could they, like, that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. There's plenty of British crap out there, and plenty of American crap. But if they can put more effort into just a few episodes rather than having to spread their budget across a full length season, can they make a better product?
I mean, they could make a better product. It comes down to how experienced your editors and your the people looking over your work are as well. Like Invincible, for example, a lot of people have been complaining that with the newest season, how the quality of the animation has got kind of took a downturn per se.
Do we know why that happened? Were there budget cuts at the Invincible studio?
Well, it was also that, and plus, yeah, because I recall that Amazon was doing all the animation in house rather than outsourcing it to Korean studios and Japanese studios. That's what I've heard at one point. I've also heard that yeah, their budget was not that big as well.
Okay, so it makes sense if their budget is cut for them to basically reduce the quality of the episodes. But then if they cut the number of episodes, they could have made higher quality individual episodes, and then maybe people wouldn't be complaining as much.
But what do you think, though? Because what's interesting is because last week we spoke about how we're seeing this anime boom and how it could bring in a lot of revenue. But then with this coming out, like how there's a shortage of professional staff, and do you reckon this kind of takes the shine off the anime boom?
Well, I think the animation industry is always, like the games industry, has always had a reputation for crunch. So I think that's always had a factor in taking the shine off. And I wonder if part of this shortage is a result of that reputation.
Yeah, because the anime studios, for one, with Japanese anime, there are numerous, a lot of anime studios. So yeah, it's they could go. You'll see, it'll come back.
It's not going to die out completely.
But even though the studios are using social media as a as a way to recruit amateurs and beginners for tasks, do you reckon it's a wise move in the beginning though, like using social media?
I don't see the difference between using social media to recruit people and any other form of advertising. I think the number of people who, like, you'll find more people because more people are on social media than on LinkedIn or Seek or whatever websites they use in Japan. But yeah, it's just another way of getting the message out there that you're hiring.
I guess so. The question would be how would you have to identify ones the ones that can actually work and the ones that don't, with that are basically scammers, like, because you see, I mean, social media, yeah, sure, it's a good way to show your project, but then on the other hand, it's like, oh crap, I actually lied what I said about my credentials.
I think that would not be a problem because no matter what, you're going to have to vet people to find out if they are legitimate or if they're making up their skills.
By the way, with the what you were saying earlier with the challenges of high quality shows with the shorter seasons, there are a couple of risks. There are, well, risks slash challenges. So one problem would be a shorter season would force studios to condense narratives, leading to rush plots or underdeveloped characters. And protagonists may lack a backstory or emotional depth, making it harder for audience to connect with. And complex arc and world building are difficult to achieve with limited episodes, which can compromise storytelling.
At the same time, when people recommend shows like One Piece, they basically talk about how much of it is filler. Because there's what, 1,000 episodes of One Piece now?
Yeah, about that. I think 1,500, but this would be dead wrong. Right now, 1,122. Damn.
Yeah, there's a lot of episodes. And the way people talk about that show and filler,
Hmm.
I reckon you could cut out a bunch of them without impacting the story or character development.
Yeah. And then there is
And-
also. Oh,
And British TV has managed to do character development on half a dozen episodes a season for years. You also might get longer episodes.
yeah, I've noticed that with Doctor Who, for example.
Yeah, we only get, since the reboot, we only get 12 or 13 or so episodes a year, but they are twice as long as a single episode previously. And I love Doctor Who, but yes, there is filler in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And every episode had to end on a cliffhanger, which also includes, I think it was Dragonfire. The Doctor climbs down a cliff and then realizes he can't keep climbing any lower because he's reached the end of his length. And then he's like, "Oh no, I'm stuck." Beginning of the next episode, he climbs back up.
Oh, so bad. It sounds bad.
It's literally a cliffhanger.
My hated filler when it comes to Doctor Who was the toy shop. I was like, what was the point of the toy shop?
Which toy shop? Yeah, you're talking about the toy maker's toy shop in the
Matt Smith
specials?
era. Yeah. The Matt Smith era.
Yeah, that wasn't the Matt Smith era.
I thought it was the Matt Smith era.
No, it was David Tennant 2.
Oh, okay.
That's when the Celestial Toymaker came back.
Okay. I'll have to find out. It was the episode. I'll have to find out though. But yeah, I was like, that's so much filler. Like, come on, get back to the story. What else? There are other challenges, like for example, the financial and market rises. So shorter seasons are often used to test audience reception before coming to longer series. While economically beneficial, this approach limits the ability to build long-term fan engagement or franchise profitability through merchandise and licensing. And thanks to the declining Blu-ray and DVD sales, reliance have been shifted towards streaming rights and merchandise, making consistent quality essential, sustaining revenue.
Okay, well, Western shows will do a single episode pilot to determine whether they're going to go ahead with a full season. So again, I don't see, scale things down. You don't need everything to be 30 episodes long. And I think realistically you need to scale things down at the moment. The way the industry seems to be going, there's a shortage of staff and there's a shortage of money in the games industry, so scale things down and have more indie projects. I'm feeling like this definitely echoes the games industry.
Which is actually interesting. There are other
projects are just too big to sustain.
Yeah. And then there are the other two constraints there. One is source media constraints. So adaptations of manga or light novels may face challenges if the source material lacks sufficient content for longer seasons. This can result in incomplete narratives or delays between seasons as studios wait for material. And audience expectations wise, fans increasingly demand high quality animation and engaging stories, which are harder to deliver within shorter formats. Studios must balance meeting these expectations while managing production constraints.
Right, okay. So they're just blaming the fans.
Well, not only just blaming the fans, but it's also blaming the author as well for not giving out more material. Like how in actually the most famous one would be Game of Thrones, like the final season. How there was not much source material to come up with the final for the final season, and they had to rely on good old George when George couldn't do much.
Yeah, I see that.
And
but also, if you're worried about keeping 1-to-1 with the book, then having fewer episodes will definitely help with that, because you won't need to create filler to take up time, so that you can still have 30 episodes and not overtake the book.
Okay.
But I think it's time to move on to our next topic, light sails. From the paper published in Nature, pentagonal photonic crystal mirrors scalable light sails with enhanced acceleration via neural topology optimization. This is a project, the Starshot Breakthrough Initiative, which plans to send microchips to Alpha Centauri within 20 years by using lasers and light sails.
So this is like something of a science fiction movie.
Yeah, they reckon these will hit a fifth of the speed of light during their journey. And this paper's important because they basically found a way to make light sails that are really efficient, very small and light, and are suitable for use with these gram-sized, gram-scale microchip probes. So they compare the Voyager 1, which has been traveling since 1977, so almost 60 years, almost 50 years, and it's only 0.5 of the distance, 0.5% of the distance to Alpha Centauri. And that using existing propulsion systems, arriving at Alpha Centauri would take over 10,000 years.
Great. So so technically I will still die.
Oh yeah, and the way to work around that is generation ships, which are self-contained spaceships that people are born and live and die on because it takes that long to get there.
Oh, dear.
And then you get into all these real ethical issues. Can you ethically commit to let's scale it down. Can you commit to a 500-year journey knowing that all these generations will live and die, only knowing the inside of the spaceship?
Oh, man. That's
Yeah.
like it's like that. Do you remember the good old Mars experiment where they said, I think some Swedish company wanted people to select a few people to go to Mars and never come back?
Yeah. It's kind of accepted that based on our current technology, if you go to Mars, you're probably not coming home.
Yeah. Would you do it though, Professor? Like spend 500 years traveling to Alpha Centauri and
Well, I
never
would never
come.
make it. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to live to be 500 years old.
Yeah, I don't think our current technology can ever beat the 7 signs of aging. Yeah, there we go. Mars to stay. Okay.
Beauty products use that slogan. I don't think those are the signs of aging you're worried about on a generation ship.
God damn it! I'm surprised you figured out where he got that. You figured
I
it
did.
out.
I got it right away. I was just stunned. Anyway, they're not talking about sending humans to Alpha Centauri. They're talking about sending tiny little microchips with cameras and sensors and basically shining a laser at them. So you put up a sail because even though light has no mass, it still has momentum and it will still emit pressure, radiation pressure on the sail and push it along. And this makes no sense in any sort of classical physics because light has no mass. It shouldn't do this. Should be impossible. Okay, my breakdown's over.
Oh man. What I find amazing is the fact that how are they going to maintain this whole thing? Like, are they going to? Because by the looks of things, it looks like it needs constant maintenance in space.
Well, that's a trick. You don't. Because they're so small and cheap to make, you can build tons of them and then just send them out, and at least one of them will get through. So they point out that the light sails will be about 10 meters square while still weighing grams, but must be nanoscale thick, which is smaller than any modern current nanotechnology. So what they've done is basically come up with a nano design for these sails that will allow a material to be that thin and light. It also has to be a particular reflectivity of the laser that they use to push it, because the laser remains on Earth. You're basically shining... Okay, take this thought experiment. You shine a torch at a sailing boat.
Yeah.
Does it move?
Theoretically, no.
Practically no, because there's not too much resistance.
Yeah.
But you are putting a force on it with your light.
This ain't Dragon Ball Z, okay? Where you can fire a beam of light of sorts and make it and push a person out to the sun or something.
Yeah, so Look, radiation pressure is a real thing. I just don't understand it and it confuses me. No, I get the principles behind it. I just don't like it because light has no mass, so it should have no momentum.
So does this so does this well, I was going to say Trump's Einstein's theory of relativity and all that, or is it a completely different field?
Completely different.
Okay.
I'm really excited by this project because, from what I understand of the paper, I'm not an astrophysicist, or a material scientist or anything like that. But from what I
Hmm.
understand, this is likely to be a real breakthrough. So they want to use silicon nitride photonic crystals as the sail. They also want to miniaturize cameras and basically make a microchip that has all of these cameras and sensors on it, which to me raises a question. How will it handle cosmic rays? Because we already know cosmic rays can cause issues with electronics.
Yeah.
And the smaller the electronics, the more likely it is that the cosmic ray will cause damage or disrupt the experiment being conducted by flipping bits.
And
It's one
not
of the
just
reasons why satellites use older chips, because they use a larger design and are less susceptible to damage from cosmic rays.
and it's not just cosmic rays you have to take into consideration. There's also the possibility of solar flares as well, which could also damage electronics as
Yeah.
well.
And they could push the solar sails off course. And yes, this does remind me of one mega engineering project that would theoretically be used to solve climate change, and that's putting a giant sunshade in space. The problem is the light pressure will just shove it out of the way. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to have a constantly be pushing it back into the correct orbit.
Wouldn't that be also dangerous if it was used in the wrong hands? Like some idiot would use it as a super weapon of sorts.
Yeah, imagine plunging your enemies into eternal night.
Oh man, I'm looking at the picture right now. It reminds me of that Simpsons episode when Mr. Burns put the town on eternal darkness, and his justification for putting his town on eternal darkness was getting more money. Oh, now I feel like I'm giving Jeff Bezos more ideas.
Stop it!
God damn it. Okay, here's the thing though with this sort of technology, with light cell technology. Could you see this become commercially viable? I mean, right now it's in its infancy, but could you see this becoming a thing? Like, let's say
What
for example,
is the commercial benefit to having a probe around Alpha Centauri?
I was gonna
That's the
say
big limiter.
yeah, I was gonna go with you could have interstellar racing at one point, but then again I'll be like, who would want to race it? Who would want to race from Earth to Alpha Centauri in 500 years?
Well, this would bring it down to about 20. The
Hmm.
problem is you're only sending a probe, not people. So you
Yeah.
get photos and stuff from Alpha Centauri, which would be interesting. Don't get me wrong. I would love to have a probe that, and the thing is, if these get cheap enough, we could just throw them out there, see what they find. But yeah, Alpha Centauri it's a long way to go before we can get people out there. And any commercial project I can think of would basically require the probes to return to Earth, and that's not possible with this design because you're pushing them from Earth with a laser. There's nothing on the probe that will direct its movement. It can't turn around and come back. Also, going at 0.5% the speed of light, sorry, not 0.5% the speed of light, at 20% the speed of light, you would need so much delta V to turn around. So maybe once we have a settlement in Alpha Centauri, we can send rockets and blast them with lasers to get them moving, and then Alpha Centauri can catch them with lasers and then turn them around and push them back. But yeah, it's not a. I don't think it's going to be a commercial project. I think it's going to be purely scientific. Anyway, this is a really interesting paper, so it'll be in the show notes. I recommend checking it out.
Yeah.
We'll take a short break and be back in a minute with our shoutouts.
And the wacky.
So once again, we are supported by Res, the energy drink for gamers. claiming to maintain your mental concentration and focus, relieve weariness and fatigue, decrease mental and cognitive fatigue, and reduce eye strain. You can get it with the code NERDS15 for a discount at drinkrez.com.
That's right, folks. You can get it from drinkrez.com. Rez, don't leave home without it.
I'm drinking it right now. In fact,
Very.
since it's a gaming drink, I think you'd drink it at home, so you would leave home without it.
Yeah. Oh, unless if you're gonna have a gaming session with a bunch of fellas, then you can take. Yes, you can take it. Take it.
Yeah, fair enough. So, our shout outs. On the 24th of the 3rd, we passed the 10th anniversary of Bloodborne, From Software's horror Souls game. Very gothic, very cosmic horror. I've never played it, but I've watched my friend play it, and it looks good. And if they maybe release it on PC, I would love to give it a go. But I'm not buying a PlayStation just to play it. People love this game.
Oh yeah.
And the main issue is that it's locked to like 25 FPS on the PlayStation 4. It's loosely inspired by Dracula and H.P. Lovecraft.
You reckon we'll get a Bloodborne remaster after all these years?
Yeah,
Or is
eventually.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm starting to think the Bloodborne remaster is just it's gonna be like the Half-Life 3. It's just still there. It's gonna be revealed in the next state of play, for example, and it never gets revealed.
Yeah, probably. And on the 26th of March, we passed the 20th anniversary of the 2005 revival of Doctor Who. The episode Rose, written by Russell T Davies, starring Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper, aired 16 years after the original run came to an end, and 9 years after the ill-fated TV movie.
Ooh.
That movie is bad.
I
love it because it's Doctor Who, but it's so bad.
Is it okay? Is it good bad? As in, like, you will have a laugh at the end of it, or is it just like, what the hell am I watching here?
No, it's good bad.
Okay.
But in the episode Rose, Billie Piper, who plays Rose, uses the internet to search for information on the Doctor and finds a conspiracy website with a real URL, which is still active today, whoisdoctorwho.co.uk. 10.81 million people watched the original transmission with a 44.84% audience share, which is very significant, I think. I mean, I'd have to look up other shows, but that is a huge audience share. The episode also introduced the Time War, which would be the recurring plot device and character arc for the Doctor for the next, well, it was really only like 8 years before Day of the Doctor, which was, that was 12 years ago. Getting old. Just reminds me, when I was in high school, I had a teacher who found out I was in Doctor Who and gave away her age by saying she remembered watching the first episode on TV.
Oh shit! Oh crap! But there was initially there wasn't much details about the whole Time War thing, wasn't there?
No, not to begin with.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Russell T Davies had it all thought out, or just saw it as a way to get rid of the Time Lords and simplify the lore. Because it's not until much later that things like the Time Lords become relevant again, and the big deal was I lost that train of thought. No, it's contagious. Anyway, it's such a shame that Christopher Eccleston will never act in Doctor Who again.
Yeah.
Because he had such a bad experience working with some of the people there. It says here that he was good friends with Russell T Davies. I don't think he is anymore, considering he said he would come back when Russell T Davies left, and Russell T Davies was still working on Doctor Who at the time.
Yeah, and you look at the pictures of him when he started playing Doctor Who, and you look at him now. It's wow, night and day.
Christopher Eccleston?
Yeah.
I mean, it has been 20 years.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah.
But if you look into it, he was also dealing with some serious issues himself. He had anorexia for a time. I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I think I don't know whether it was as a result of the issues he had with the production, or it was very fast and loose, and people almost got hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So you can look into all that on your own time if you want. And on the same day, we passed the 50th anniversary of the Biological Weapons Convention coming into force. The Biological Weapons Convention is a disarmament treaty banning biological and toxin weapons by prohibiting development, production, acquisition, transfer, stockpiling, and use. I have no doubt that the governments of various countries that have signed this treaty have secret stockpiles of things like smallpox just in case. But the idea is that, yeah, they really should avoid using biological weapons because you can't control them once they're fired.
Oh yeah. I bet you when those guys were signing the biological convention, they were just signing while having on one hand while having their fingers crossed on the other hand.
Yeah, which is disappointing, guys. Do better. But the history of biological warfare goes back more than 6 centuries to the Siege of Caffa in 1346. It wasn't until 1925 Geneva Protocol that the prohibition of the use of chemical and biological weapons was brought in. And on the 26th of March 1933, sorry, I messed up moment. What is our messed up moment this week?
So you know how Snow White, the live action movie's out for a while now.
Yes.
So you remember? Do you remember the scariest part of that movie? What it was?
The original.
Yeah, the original. What was
I
the
haven't seen the
scariest?
remake. I'm not even sure I've seen the original.
Well, so I will tell you the most messed up part of that of the Snow White's which live action or otherwise, it is when the evil queen turns into an old hag.
Really? Not the bit
Y-
where she's put to sleep and woken with a kiss? A
no,
non-consensual kiss? Which
no,
is goes much further in the
modern
original
standards.
Grimm's the original Grimm's fairy tale version.
Yeah.
She gets pregnant and has a baby while still asleep, and the baby wakes her up.
Ah, ugh, what the hell? I've never seen. I know that one, but oh damn. But with this one, it was the transformation is ugly. So the queen's hair turns gray. Her hands turn into bony fingers with nails as sharp as claws, which is followed by the reveal of a face which is amazingly creepy. The design is extremely effective with beady eyes and a pointy nose with a protruding wart. The witch has plenty of scenes throughout the film where she continues to scare the audience, but the transformation scene is most memorable. The scene ends with the witch recanting the spell and delivering a horrifying smile to the camera. Even the crow is terrified of the queen's new appearance. The old hag certainly isn't the fairest among them all, but she might just be the most terrifying. I wonder how ugly was the Gal Gadot edition.
Nobody will ever know because nobody's seen it.
Although I feel sorry for the people that have the Disney Plus account when this movie comes to streaming services. That's gonna scar a lot of people.
Okay, so I've just done some research,
Uh-huh.
and it looks like the original Grimm's version of this didn't involve a baby.
Oh, thank God.
And I might be thinking of Sleeping Beauty because I know they both have scenes where they're presumed like asleep and a prince finds them and blah 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 blah. But yeah, it might be Sleeping Beauty where she was asleep and the prince and gets really dark and gross.
Yep. Oh shit.
And our wacky movie from the 26th of March 1933 is White Zombie, one of the first movies featuring The Walking Dead. It was directed by Victor Halperin, written by Garnet Weston and William B. Seabrook, starring Bela Lugosi, Madge Bellamy, Joseph Corfran, and others. And it played into the original voodoo meaning of zombie. A young man turns to a witch doctor to lure the woman he loves away from her fiancé, but instead turns her into a zombie slave.
And they say romance is dead.
Yeah, it's an interesting bit of history that the original meaning of the word zombie was basically someone who was under a spell to obey the voodoo doctor.
Well, here's the interesting thing. They say here, zombies are real life individuals in Haiti who have undergone a religious punishment called zombification for committing crimes such as land theft and the dreaded R word. They are drugged, buried alive, exhumed, and then enslaved by secret societies in Haiti. This practice became the basis for the zombie myth of a resurrected corpse.
Okay, so that's a bit more detail there.
Hmm.
This movie had such a small budget that they had to film at night, and it's believed to be the first feature film to identify its antagonists as zombies. It's really interesting history there, from how we got from voodoo zombies to zombies that want to eat your brains. But we're running out of time, so look after yourselves, stay hydrated, and we will see you next week.
You can find us on social media, Spotify, and all other platforms. Stay happy, stay nerdy. See you guys.